Economics is a social science that studies how individuals, governments, firms, and nations make choices on allocating scarce resources to satisfy their unlimited wants. This concept concerns us all, since even the slightest change in global economy can have big repercussions in our daily life. The following video will try to make clear some of the hardest topics related to economics. Both sustainable development and economic development are important because they have a relation. We consider this because the sustainable development is how the activities from the economic development affect the environment in which we live in. But there are many points of view. For example, we may find more important taking care of people that are starving, which is economic development, than saving our natural resources that are renewable. On the other hand, some will consider that it's better to preserve our national resources because poverty and pollution come together. We can observe this when we realize that poverty is caused when water is polluted and people don't have a clean source of water, or they don't have water to grow their crops. Also, when we observe that climate change will destroy houses or communities. There are some sustainable cities in the world that have showed us that a change can be made if we work together, act and develop thinking in how activities will damage our environment. Some examples can be cities from the US and China that are developing and creating jobs at the same time while they are taking care of pollution and resources.
An important concept that should be defined before we move on to more complex ones is the economic cycle, which are all the fluctuations that are created as a result of the ups and downs in the growth of output, jobs, income, and spending in all the countries, also related to the way we use our natural resources in order to develop our economic activities. For example, when the US are in war, they tend to suffer a boom, then inflation, and later recession.
The impact of using natural resources in our environment may be or may not be good. It depends on how they are used. For example, nowadays there are many regulations in order to preserve or properly use all of our natural resources. Sadly, there are a lot of countries that use them without thinking in the effects this overuse may cause. An example of responsible use of natural resources and cooperation is how water and land became the center of attention for the UN. This problem was discussed in the Stockholm Conference and in Earth Summit in 1992, where regulations were implemented in several countries.
A good indicator of how impactful someone is to the environment is the carbon footprint. Mexico's carbon footprint is a calculation based on how much CO2 a family releases to the environment. According to the MIDE, some examples to reduce this carbon footprint are use a bike instead of a car, use only non-stop flights, and reduce the amount of time your devices are connected.
Now we're going to talk about two main concepts of economy based on what we learned at the meeting. First of all, market. Market is an actual or nominal place where buyers and sellers interact in order to exchange money for goods, services, and different products. It is also a place where the forces of demand and supply interact.
The other concept we saw at the MIDE was money. Money is defined as anything of value that serves as an economic and financial exchange.
In economics, there's a concept named scarcity, which refers to the lack of resources someone has that stops them from achieving an unlimited production of products or services. Teenagers are also affected by scarcity. For example, the scarcity of an average teenager would be the limited budget they live with. Both a Mexican teenager and a US teenager have the same monetary limitations, and in order to increase their income, they must sacrifice their time and effort in order to get some money in return. That sacrifice is called opportunity cost, which is something that you stop doing in order to get something else in return.
Now we're going to talk about inflation. Inflation is defined as the rate in which the price of the goods and services rises, but the purchasing power of the consumer falls.
One example is when the gas prices rises, but the family income stays at the same level.
There's a
Based on what we learned at the meeting, we can say that supply is the total amount of a certain product that is available to the consumer. On the other hand, demand is the desire of the consumer to pay a determined price in order to get a determined product.
Inside the MIDE, we entered into a simulator of a market in which we were divided into two teams, the consumers and the suppliers or sellers. Well, the activity was based on these two teams, and the objective was that in 3 rounds, consumers needed to buy the most amount of a certain product at the least price, and the sellers needed to sell at the highest price a certain product. So we had to negotiate as a consumer with the sellers in order to agree with the price and to buy a product.
a big difference between Banco de México and Secretaría de Hacienda y Crédito Público. The first one is autonomous from the Mexican state. Its goal is to provide Mexican economy with national currency and to stabilize the acquisitive power of said coin. They are also responsible for promoting a good functioning of pay systems, while the second one's main purpose is to propose and run economic policies which involve public debt and tax collection.
The interest rates are the amount charged from a borrower to a lender in terms of assets. This can be modified by different factors. One of them is the National Reserve, which can modify either lowering the rates or increasing them depending on the economy.
The National Index of Prices for Consumers is a statistical estimate that measures the changes in prices for different goods and services that are bought for household. It is used in order to check the effectiveness of different environmental, economical, and governmental policies.
The federal government's main contribution to economy is that they dictate the pace of economic activity, with the sole purpose of maintaining steady growth, high levels of employment, and price stability. They allocate resources through adjusting spending and tax rates, or managing the money supply, and controlling the use of credit. If we could create our own economic package, we would increase spending on infrastructure and encourage foreign investments. This would generate more jobs and therefore more income to Mexican families.
The Human Development Index, most commonly known as HDI, is a summary measure of average achievement in key dimensions of human development: a long and healthy life, being knowledgeable, and having a decent standard of living. In simpler terms, the HDI is a way to measure the overall quality of life a country has to offer. After thorough research and discussion, we concluded that the country everyone should like to live in is Norway. Not only is Norway one of the most beautiful countries in Europe, but they score the highest in the HDI and have one of the most innovative and successful educational programs in the whole world. Their position in the ranking hasn't changed in the last years, and their GNI per capita is thrice the one of Mexico. Since the HDI collects data from a country's inhabitants, we can easily improve Mexico's score by helping vulnerable groups achieve a mid to high-end quality of life throughout an implementation of communitarian actions such as education for the poor or raising awareness on human rights or whatever that might help them. The government also plays an important role in this particular place